Ever since I was born, I've been hearing about this great place, Ramah.
Well, I had been begging my parents to go to Camp Ramah for years.
My connection to Camp Ramah began 40 years ago.
My husband was a camp person. He was another Camp Ramah, and we always knew that when we had our kids, they were going to be Camp Ramah kids.
My grandmother worked here for a little bit. My grandfather worked at Ramah in Ojai. My mother was a camper both here and in Canada.
My brothers were campers here. My parents worked here.
I followed my older cousins to camp. My mom and my aunts came to this Ramah. They actually went to Berkshires and Glens Bay and to Palmer.
And we heard about this great place called Camp Ramah in New England that a lot of the kids from my temple went to.
There was a guy by the name of Seymour Fox at the Jewish Theological Seminary. I was one of Seymour's hitmen. Fox was, he was pushing Ramah. And if Fox was pushing Ramah, that's where I went.
I came here 11 years ago as a shlicha, right after I released from the army.
Because all my siblings came, and I wanted to start as early as possible. So like the second I found out I could come, I made sure I was here.
I was about 7 when I started at camp.
I was 5 years old when I first started.
So I started when I was 3.5 years old.
My sister started coming to Ramah and quickly told me that it was a great camp.
This is my 2nd year. This is my 10th summer at RamahNE Ramah. This is my 5th summer at camp.
So I came to Camp Ramah, New England, from Florida. We were the group that was flown up here from Florida. I first came to Ramah as a staff member. I actually was a waitress my first summer in 1982, I think.
I've been coming to camp for 4 years.
My brother had worked at Camp Ramah and suggested that it was a great place to be. And I thought it was a good idea.
And I was at Camp Ramah, New England for a total of 20 summers, just about.
I started as a camper in 1956. I was at Ramah, Connecticut in 1956 and 57. The Rabbi Herschel Met in my congregation in Troy, New York, said that the top student in every Hebrew school class should be offered a scholarship to Ramah as an incentive. It was a $75 scholarship.
I first came to camp as a 10-year-old. I was in Solalim in 1992. And I was a staff brat. My whole family came to camp. My mom was working in Omanut.
My first summer was 1989. I was 6 years old. I was also a staff brat.
So in 4th grade, my parents said, okay, this summer you're going to Ramah. We worked there. We went there as campers to Ramah and the Poconos, and they both worked here in Palmer.
I met my girlfriend, Rachel Kozak, at University of Maryland. And we wanted to spend the summer together, and she was coming back to the camp for the 11th or 12th summers.
I grew up as a Schechter kid in Providence, Rhode Island, and it was very important to my parents, who were very Zionist and very involved in the Jewish community, that I have a non-Jewish camp experience. My dad wanted us to learn how to canoe and how to shoot rifles and do things that you did at the Indian summer camps that he went to. So we went to a YMCA camp for a number of years in New Hampshire. And after a few years there, as we became more involved in the Jewish community as young adults, as teenagers, we wanted to attend Ramah, both my brother and I, and we did. And it was when we could combine the elements of camp that we had learned and loved at our YMCA camps with the Jewish elements, it was time to come to Ramah.
I began as a Camp Ramah parent. I sent our first child here in the summer of 1994. We then sent each of our 5 children here through the years.
I started in what was then Ada X, which is now Nevonim, and then I went to Israel with Ramah, and then I was a counselor for 2 years. And now I have 3 boys who've been here for the last 15 years or so.
Growing up, the rule was I was not allowed to stay home. I had to go and do something. And I went to a few day camps in Connecticut, which were fine, but I didn't particularly love. And somebody from Camp Ramah went to my Schechter school, Ezra Academy in Woodbridge, Connecticut. I don't remember who it was, and I don't remember what they did, but something about what they did or what they talked about seemed like Camp Ramah was going to be a fun camp. And I brought some piece of promotional material home, and I asked my parents, would this be okay? And I remember them saying yes right away. I don't know if there may have been a more deliberative process, but and I wound up coming to camp, and I haven't looked back.
I was looking for a place to go on staff. I knew that I wanted the Jewish summer camp experience to continue, and Ramah has a great relationship with my home shul. And Rabbi Ethan Linden was visiting on a Shabbos and came to speak to me for maybe 20 minutes, and literally in that time had me sold on a position.
I first really learned about Camp Ramah in the summer of 2000 when my family went on a trip to Israel, and during that trip there was another girl on the trip who spent the summer at Ramah Poconos and spent the whole time, she and her father, about how fabulous Camp Ramah was. We came back from that trip, and in October or November, we had this fantastic guy from Camp Ramah, New England, came to our community, came to our synagogue. His name was Josh Edelklass. And he gave us he taught us, he gave us information about Camp Ramah.
All right, so we're going to go back to the summer of 1987. Actually the spring of 1987. Prior to that, we had been sending our children to a Solomon Schechter school in Haverhill, Massachusetts for a few years. And we got friendly with the director, and her name was Deborah Margolis. And she knew that this particular Ramah, she had some connection, I don't remember anymore what it was, some connection to this Ramah, and she knew that they were looking for nursing staff. So I was at that point in time a young mother with 3 small children, not looking forward to spending the summer at home with them, and I said, I've got to find something else to do. I took the job for a month. The first year was for a month. Worked out well, and I kept coming back. This will be my 25th summer.
And if you go back 10 years ago, we were living overseas.
We were living in Singapore.
And we were moving back to the United States.
So we started to think about, okay, so we're going to move home over the summer. That's fantastic. Hannah, it would be great if we could go to a summer camp.
And for the summer, wanted to spend the summer at a summer camp. And it was very important to my wife, Marcia, that she was able to work at that summer camp.
Pesach came and an itinerant rabbi came who had worked at Ramah as when he was older, and his wife, when they had kids. And so they told us about how they had brought their kids to camp. I thought that would be perfect.
So we made a whole variety of phone calls, talked around, and ended up talking with the then assistant director, Sally.
And said she would love to have us, which was all of us, which was really what we wanted to hear.
And Sally asked Marcia if she would like to be the Genenet and to run the Gan. And Marcia, who was a law professor, thought this would be a great job.
Hannah started making a note, and I came with Noah, who was 3, Tali, who was 5, and Sarah, who was 7.
So 10 years ago, we came to camp, and we lived in a nice small room in the Chet building all together.
Because we didn't have housing in West Hartford.
And I was working at United Technologies, and every morning I would wake up, put a suit on, walk out of camp, get in my car, drive to East Hartford, and then come back and arrive back in my suit at the end of the day.
For camp to have become home in such a short amount of time was really we thought it was extraordinary and beautiful.
And then for the last 10 years, we have all been at camp for every summer since then.
So this was something, it was clear to me I was going to go to this place.